And welcome to the program. An earthquake of 5.9 magnitude has struck southeastern Afghanistan. At least 1,000 people have been killed and over 1,500 are injured. The earthquake struck about 44 kilometers from the city of Khost near the border with Pakistan. Tremors were reportedly felt by about 119 million people in Pakistan, Afghanistan and India. Helicopters have been deployed to rescue people in the remote mountainous areas. Pictures from Afghan media show landslides and ruined mud-built homes in eastern Paktika province, where rescuers are scrambling to treat the injured. Afghanistan is prone to quakes. The disaster comes as the country grapples with a severe economic crisis since the Taliban took over. A US-led international forces withdrew following 2 decades of war. The Taliban have been cut off from much international assistance because of sanctions. Neighboring country India has offered condolences to the victims and families, and the Pope has offered his prayers.
In the past few hours, an earthquake has caused extensive damage in Afghanistan. I express my sympathy to the injured and those affected by the earthquake. And I pray in particular for those who have lost their lives and their families. I hope that with everyone's help, the suffering of the Afghan people can be alleviated.
For more on this, our Pakistan Bureau Chief Anas Malik is joining us live with the latest on the situation in Afghanistan. Anas Malik, good to see you. Probably an update on the rescue operation. We are also receiving reports that the death toll has surpassed 1,000. Can you also confirm that for us?
Absolutely, Eric. What is now the worst earthquake in 2 decades that Afghanistan has seen has now claimed more than 1,000 lives. The last such earthquake was in Afghanistan, where we saw the death toll being that high, were 2 earthquakes back to back in the north in Badakhshan and Baghlan, where 1,100 people had lost their lives, and that was back in 2002. So 2 decades on, this is probably the worst ever natural disaster that Afghanistan has seen in 2 decades. More than 1,000 deaths that have now been confirmed, and the death toll seem to increase for one very reason. This is in the southeastern part of Afghanistan. I've traveled there extensively. There is lesser connectivity. There are even parts where you wouldn't even be getting mobile phone signals. So there is no connectivity. There are no means to reach out to people. There is more and more infrastructure damage. And this earthquake, it literally shook Kabul to Islamabad. It was felt here for about 27 seconds. Initial reports suggested that the magnitude was on Richter scale was 6.1. Then the USGS clarified that it was 5.9 on Richter scale, with just 51 kilometers of depth. That's barely any depth when it comes to the plates of the earth. That is something that has caused greater and greater damage. The Afghan authorities are clearly incapable of handling such a disaster. They've been calling on donor organizations. The Taliban-led government, they've been saying that international organizations should be coming up and helping them because they're not equipped to handle such a sort of a disaster. Eric?
Malik, usually in cases of such a magnitude, the meteorological departments issue alerts. Was there any warning issued prior in Afghanistan or even Pakistan?
Well, no, given that Pakistan and Afghanistan in those eastern mountains, they usually are fault lines. We usually see earthquakes being generated, having occurred in these areas, but they're of small magnitudes. As latest as about last week, about 10 days ago, we saw an earthquake on the Richter scale of about 5 on the magnitude. So earthquakes are pretty much a norm or normal over here in this very region, in the Afghanistan-Pakistan region, because of its structure. But particularly an earthquake of this magnitude was not foreseen by the Met departments. There was no prior warning, and as I said, that is what is making it much more worse for the Afghan Taliban-led government, because A, they're not equipped to handle such disaster. B, they are facing increased sanctions. C, they say that the international bodies need to step forward, and D, people who were previously trained by the previous admins, most of them are presumed to have left or fled to safety following the Taliban takeover. Eric?
Malik, before I let you go, Just very quickly, there are conflicting reports. Was this a 6.1 or 5.9 magnitude earthquake?
Well, the initial report, when it came, it was the preliminary assessment was that it was 6.1. That is what was put out by the USGS as well. As I said, in Islamabad, miles away from Kabul, I felt it here, and my apartment, my entire bed shook. It was Pakistan time at around 1:54 a.m., Kabul time 1:24 a.m., and it was dark at night. But then after the investigations came in, and now the conclusive report suggests by the USGS is that this earthquake was recorded on Richter scale at 5.9. Eric?
Thank you very much, Anas Malik, our Pakistan Bureau Chief, for that update. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.